Can you guys all say Team Say on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Hi. So when I first watched the video, I had to watch it before I came tonight because I knew that I was going to cry like a baby, and I was not trying to do that.
A mother losing a child can't do anything but feel like you've done a bad job. Your job is to protect your children. And I'll always feel a certain responsibility and a certain sense that I let him down. I let him down.
911, where's your emergency?
I need to get an ambulance.
Where are you?
I'm in Boulder.
Where in Boulder? Give me an address.
080 14th Street.
1080 14th Street?
Yeah.
What's going on?
We got a guy who's passed out. He drank way too much, and we found him this morning.
Every year on America's college campuses, 700,000 kids are injured as a result of alcohol abuse, and 1,700 kids die as a result of alcohol abuse.
Okay, so he's passed out inside the house?
No, inside.
Is there an apartment number?
No, it's just a fraternity.
Okay, is he on the floor or?
He's on the floor.
A lot of times you drink to get drunk, but you can die from it. It's that serious.
How did we as adults, or even people who work with young people, where is it that we didn't give them the message?
We're seeing an increase in binge drinking across the board with youth today.
Where is it that we didn't say, if your friend is unconscious, you need to call 911?
So you can't tell if he's breathing or not?
It doesn't look like it.
You don't think what? It doesn't look like what?
It doesn't look like he's breathing very much at all.
At all or not very much?
Doesn't look like it at all.
I don't think parents are aware of what their kids are being asked to navigate, particularly when they go to college.
You know, I've seen this video. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen this video, and I'm still at a loss for words when we're asked to kind of say what we think about what's in the video. Wow. I think the video speaks for itself in terms of laying out the seriousness and the prevalence of college drinking, so I don't really want to spend time sort of convincing you that is real. What I'd like to talk about is a comment that people made over and over through the video that we heard was that what happened to Gordie was totally avoidable. And so at Waves at Mason, one of the activities that we do year-round is alcohol education for students, and educating them on there are so many other things to do on campus, so many other ways to connect with other students and to have fun without having alcohol.
As a physician, obviously, I have a kind of a unique take on the whole film, because for me, it's an issue for teens. While it's an issue for adults as well, we're going to talk about the teen issue or young adult issue. I think most of the teens, and many of the parents probably know, why alcohol and other substances, we can talk about a variety of other substances too, are issues for teen use. Why do we make 21 the age? In fact, I'll say, what should the age be based on medical studies, based on industries in the United States that follow what happens to teens or young adults when they're using substances? What age should it be that it'd be legal to use alcohol? Anybody got a guess? 25. 25. Why? Because that's when the brain finishes maturing. So until age 25, the area of our brain, the executive function part of our brain, I say with my teens, the part of your brain that tells you to sit down and shut up, that part of the brain's not fully developed yet. And for some people it takes them past 25 to get there. In fact, some people at 35 probably still don't have all of it working yet. But the point being, at 17, 18, 19, that part of the brain isn't fully functional yet. Well, guess where alcohol? Now, alcohol poisons a lot of the different parts that work in our body, but what does it affect as one of its primary things? Judgment. behavior. The same area that's not mature yet in teens and young adults. So, like I said, from a medical standpoint, it shouldn't be 21, it should be 25, or maybe 30. Because that's at the point where people can appropriately moderate use of alcohol. If we're going to talk about moderation, teens can't moderate it. And I'll go to the teens, you guys don't have to answer this, but teen use, as they talked about in the video, the intent is to get drunk. For most of the adults in the room, if we say, why do you drink alcohol? Most of the adults would say, because I enjoy wine. I enjoy the taste of beer. I have one or two and I'm done. For the teens, it's to get drunk. Totally different reason to use it. And that, as we talked about, there's a lot of effects alcohol has in the body, and the physician that was in the video talked about a lot of that. But it affects a lot of our behavior, a lot of our judgment, a lot of our decision making, and our ability to control ourselves. So I also run the forensic unit at the hospital. So I'm in charge of the nurses that see patients who have been sexually assaulted. I see the child abuse cases and the adult abuse cases. And I asked one of the nurses one time, I said, should we look at how many of our patients have alcohol in their system at the time that we see them after a sexual assault? And she's like, no, because most of them do. There's no reason to study that. The vast majority do. In fact, when we actually did look at it, it's probably between 70 and 80% have used alcohol at the time of a sexual assault. Now, that's not to say that the women deserved it by any means, but their safety measures are down. They may be in an area they shouldn't be in, they wouldn't normally be in. They may be with people they wouldn't normally be with. They may be attacked because they can't defend themselves. So there's a variety of reasons. Now we can go to the boys, because usually it's boy on girl. The boys make the same bad decision. They commit the assault because their brain's not working right. So from my standpoint as a physician, a lot of the problems we see is related to the use of alcohol. It's just inherent in the fact that that's the way it affects our body.
My son chose to drink at a post-exam party, post-midterm party. That decision led to impaired his judgment, and he got into a car with another student who was incredibly drunk. They crashed head-on into a car driven by one of my son's own instructors. She had just graduated from the school, just got a PhD from the school that the driver was going to, and was an instructor at the school my son was going to. She was one of my son's instructors. She had 5 children. She was killed instantly. My son was killed instantly. The driver was killed instantly. My son basically chose to drink and made a decision, a bad decision, that cost his life.
If you've seen Law and Order, we're the district attorneys. Alcohol use by underage individuals is, on its face, obviously illegal, but it's also one of the illegal activities that everyone seems to be okay with. It seems to be, whether you're a parent sitting here and thinking, well, it's hypocritical of myself to say something to my kids to not drink because I drank in college, or whether you're someone at a party seeing a bunch of other kids who shouldn't be drinking, downing a bunch of shots to get drunk. It seems to be one of those socially accepted, violations of the law. And it strikes me as, what if it was something like robbing somebody were the same thing? I mean, it's obviously it's something that I think in society has become a little acceptable. And I think you kind of, for years now that we've been doing this, we try to figure out, well, what's the best way to get to you sitting here so that you don't go out and make these mistakes and do these things. And some of it's going to be sharing perspective from our jobs and obviously sharing the Gordie story, but I think at the end of the day, you have to come to this with an understanding that this isn't about Gordie. It isn't about these other individuals we've seen that are true stories that are either end in the extreme, in Gordie's case with death, or end in a young woman being sexually assaulted, or end in a bar fight, or end in some dumb decision to get behind the wheel and and get into an accident, or get into a car with somebody who's had too much to drink and get into an accident. It's not about all those other people. What it's about is you, okay? You sitting in those chairs. Because I think what we find is people who decide to drink in these functions don't do so for themselves. They do so for other people who are pushing peer pressure. So at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have to wake up dealing with the consequences of making the decision to drink. And you have to be able to decide today, tomorrow, each party you go to not drink for yourself. It's just a decision you have to make for yourself because you have to live with the consequences. And it's not a decision I don't feel that you can make going in and say, I'm just going to have one, because at the end of the day, you have one, it's easy to have two, which, again, in these settings, the goal is to get drunk to the point where you don't remember what's happening. One turns into two, turns into three, and mind you, you're not in control oftentimes of what's being poured into that cup. So, as someone who, and I'll tell you, I did go to the University of Virginia and had a blast, and I made a decision not to drink, and I've not drank my whole life, and I didn't drink through college, and I promise you, just try it, okay? You're gonna have plenty of people telling you to try to drink. Just try this, it's okay, everyone else is doing it. Try not drinking. You can still have fun, I guarantee it. I went to parties, I didn't drink. I had a bottle of soda in my hand. Eventually everyone knew I wasn't a drinker and didn't pressure you. So it just takes one saying no. Everyone else is gonna get drunk and go on to the next thing and forget all about you. So the hardest thing is to say no the first time, but if you do, you'll be much better off for it. I had plenty of fun in college, but I never woke up wondering what I did the night before. I didn't ever wake up in a jail cell. And I woke up, most importantly, every day. You're about to embark on a journey into a situation where you have a ton of people, 18 to 21, on a confined campus with no adults around. If you need alcohol to find fun in a situation like that, you have bigger problems than just alcohol use. Okay, there's plenty of activities to do throughout college campuses that don't involve breaking the law by taking that first drink.
There are a few things from the video that kind of stand out for me, and I know they do for Jeff as well, and one of them in particular is you'll hear the folks say a lot of times, if somebody had just called, this would have never happened. And that may be true. If somebody had called, maybe Gordie would be alive. But what really kind of strikes me is maybe if Gordie hadn't had that much to drink, Gordie would be alive. And there are two levels of personal responsibility that I see in that film, that documentary. One is caring for those around you. So if your friend, your brother, your cousin, your fraternity brother, your teammate on the lacrosse team, if they get drunk and they appear to be in need, then do something to help them. Don't worry about your mom and dad getting mad at you. Don't worry about the coach finding out, because if your teammate dies, the coach is going to find out. Okay? Don't worry about, oh, they won't let me go to the mall with my friends this weekend if they find out it was a party where people were drinking. Do something to help that person. Okay? That point in the video is valid, but what I think is even more important is, why in the world would you put yourself in that situation to begin with?
When you come to college, so many things are thrown at you, from what you learn in class to what your club is doing that week. Try to be aware of some of the policies that your campus has. Like just last semester, Mason passed an amnesty policy, which is if you are out with someone, your roommate, your friend, if they just come back wasted, it's okay to call the campus police. And they will come and they will help your friend or whoever, and there's no penalty to your academic record. You know, there's nothing like that. And I'm sure that other universities have that. And it's my job as a peer health educator to be aware of these things. And some students don't know this. And I think that's an important policy for students to know. Because some people don't call the police because they're like, well, I'm afraid what's going to happen to me. Like, I don't want this to go on my record. I don't want anyone to know about this. But you need to make that call, you know? And with policies like that, I feel like it gives students the comfort to make that call. Like, okay, I can call someone and report this to someone, and I can be that helping hand to a friend. So I think just to be aware and know, you know, what resources are available to you on your campus or in your community is very, very important.
Thank you. We're going to come full circle. I know, Dr. Hatter, you touched on this briefly, but what are the signs of alcohol poisoning and how do you treat it?
The issue with alcohol poisoning is it looks like, so when do most people consume alcohol? Morning or evening? Evening, okay? Alcohol was used as a drug for a number of years. Any military historians will know that we used it as a medication during the Civil War for surgery. Because we needed to cut off your arm or your leg because it was gangrenous down in the field, and we didn't even have ether then. Nobody uses ether anymore for surgery, but we didn't even have ether in the battlefield. We had alcohol. So they would give you some alcohol and then cut off your arm or leg as quick as they could, okay? Because it's an anesthetic. So how it has an effect in our body. It anesthetizes. It inhibits some of the actions that the body does. So you're going to start to be inhibited. You're going to start to slow down. You're going to slow down your breathing. You're going to be less awake. Now there's a disinhibition period, so it lowers the activity of a lot of nerves, but some of those nerves get affected first. So most people get animated and sort of excited. That's why we see bar fights, that's why we see sexual assaults, we see impaired judgment, but also people who are more animated and more likely to do stupid things, okay? But as you get more and more intoxicated, you become more inhibited and sort of become more sleepy. Well, there's the problem. You've consumed alcohol at night. You've consumed enough to make yourself sleepy or sedated. Are you sleeping because you're tired because it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning? Or are you, like I said, dying because you're becoming more and more comatose? As was alluded to, and not to get fancy on the chemistry of it, but alcohol is what we call a zero-order drug. You will metabolize it only at a certain rate. Doesn't matter how much you have in your body. You don't consume it any faster in your body just because you have a whole bunch. You can only get rid of it so fast. It also diffuses everywhere. So as most people know, we're 60-70% water in our body. We call them mixed drinks for a reason. There's no alcohol in a layer of water like there is in salad dressing. It's all mixed together. So when you put that into your body, it's going to diffuse into all of the cells in your body. Even if you're laying there unconscious, if you have alcohol in your stomach still, you're going to continue to diffuse alcohol. You're going to become more intoxicated. It has nothing to do with whether you're awake or not. It's just the volume that you use. So when we hear about kids that drink 10, 15 shots at a time, you're going to be okay for a little bit. You're going to start to get intoxicated. You're going to pass out, and you're going to still be absorbing more alcohol. That's how the deaths happen related to alcohol poisoning. And they look like they're going to sleep. So from my perspective as a physician, it's really hard to tell out in the community what's going on. Once you come into the emergency department, guess how we treat you? We just give you time, okay? We do supportive stuff. So if you're really not breathing and I can't do something, non-invasively to get you to oxygenate better, yeah, we can put a breathing tube in and we can take over with the ventilator, but that's actually pretty rare. Most of the time we hook you up to a monitor, put you on some oxygen, we might give you some fluids, and we wait, and we just watch you for a while and let you metabolize it off. And once you become more awake, if somebody's there to take you home, we can let you go home. Okay, so once you get to the hospital, it's actually easy. There's very few people that are going to die of alcohol poisoning once you get to a paramedic or an ambulance or into the hospital. The issue is recognizing that that's what's happened. That's the hard part.
I always talk to parents about students before you come to college to talk about, so what are my plans when I go to college? And you're going to be offered alcohol. There's going to be parties, you're going to be invited. Your roommate may have alcohol, it's going to be around you. You're going to be exposed to it, you're going to be offered it. So to think ahead and plan ahead for what is your response going to be to that. And if your response to that is going to be, I'm not going to drink until I'm 21, or I'm not going to drink at all, to think concretely about how you say that. Because what we find is that students who have a plan and they know what they're going to say are more likely to actually do that versus the students who haven't thought about it and are just sort of caught like a deer in the headlights, like I don't know what to do now, I don't want to look like some kind of nerd, I don't know how to get out of this gracefully, I don't know what to do. So to be thinking ahead and planning ahead about how you are going to get out of that, what are you going to say? And what was mentioned earlier, even at George Mason, we have over 400 student organizations. We have an organization called Weekends at Mason that plans activities for students to do all weekend long that go until 2 in the morning on Friday nights, and trips into DC on Saturday. And so lots of things to do. There is so much to do. So by planning ahead and thinking ahead, when you go to orientation over the summer, look to see what's around for people to do. Our club sports and intramural sports at George Mason is very, very active. So there's opportunities to socialize and meet other students through those kinds of activities. So again, plan ahead and think ahead. You're more likely to be able to stick to that decision versus just saying, oh, I just won't, or I'll figure it out in the moment, because the chances are you really won't figure it out in the moment or stick to your plan.
So you came to this video tonight, Hayes. What are you thinking? Why'd you come?
Well, my mom told me about it, and she was, talking about binge drinking and stuff, and about college drinking. So she wanted me to really see this, and she wanted to see this as well. So I came, and it was actually really nice. I liked it, and the video was really touching too.
Great. So, you know what college you're going to already?
University of Florida.
Wow.
Florida Gators.
I'll bet you there'll be some partying out there.
It'll be kind of fun, yeah.
In the nice sun. And so are you going to utilize the beach and the sun?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I have family down there too, so I'll be going back and forth from University of Florida and Sarasota. So
that's excellent.
It's going to be awesome.
So are you going to drink?
I don't think so. Maybe not. I might join with a fraternity, maybe a little bit, but maybe a little drinking, but I'm not planning on it.
Okay, so you know how they say, well, there's hazing and people are going to make you drink to be part of that fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to handle that? Are you ready
I'm just not going to deal with the pressure. I'll just tell them no.
What if they say you can't be part of the fraternity?
Oh, well.
You're going to move on?
Maybe, yeah. I'm coming up with a plan now. My mom's talking to me about it, but yeah.
That's great. What kind of plan? Mom, come over here. So what does he do if the fraternity says you drink or you're out?
Well, I'm hoping he's going to be convicted and say no and don't give in to the pressure.
So what kind of plan, though, could he come up with?
Well, I mean, that's part of his conviction. He doesn't really have to have a plan other than saying no.
I decided not to drink actually in high school around the time that everyone else was decided to drink. The crew of friends I had were very into drinking. But I think at the end of the day, I think the biggest factor for me was I didn't want to relinquish control of my life to something else, i.e. alcohol. And I was very cognizant of the fact that from watching my friends, as well as family members, that it's a real possibility that if I drink, not only in that instant at that party will I not be in full control of what happens to me, throughout life, I may lose control of what happens to me, through alcoholism, as well as making one bad choice. I saw plenty of friends make one bad choice because they were drunk, and that wasn't an excuse when it came down to ruining their life for forever. So it really came down to, I guess I'm a little bit of a control freak, but I really did not like being out of control and not being in control of my present and my future. And it got easier and easier and easier. I said no, and I would have friends of mine, is dating back to high school, where people we didn't know would be pressuring me to drink, and my friends would pretty much get into fights with these people to back my decision not to drink. And that's when you know you have real friends, right? I mean, and at the end of the day, like's been said up here, you say no, everyone else who's drinking, they're not going to care about you after that. Meaning they're not going to care whether you drink or not after that. And the reality is, yeah, you're going to be offered alcohol, but I can't remember that many times I was actually offered alcohol when I showed up with something in my hand, or when I showed up and there was other things going on. You either got the alcohol or you didn't, and that's why I say you got to kind of make that decision for yourself. I think a lot of people come into a situation feeling an internal pressure to appease all these other people who are drinking, thinking it's going to lead to acceptance. And at the end of the day, not drinking doesn't lead to being ostracized if you're doing it for yourself. And like Sergeant Pang said, make it about you. Don't make it about everyone else. Everyone else is responsible for themselves. Decide not to do it for yourself and leave it at that, and you're fine.
And like some of the other folks have said, there's so many things to do on the college campus, but forget college. What about life? What about your life? Isn't there anything else that you can do other than get schnockered and pass out on a toilet? One of the things that comes with alcohol abuse is regret. I don't know about you, but show of hands, how many folks in here enjoy hugging toilets? No one else? I'm serious. Does anybody in here enjoy hugging a toilet? Especially a toilet in a fraternity house that 30 dudes have used for God only knows what, right? But you'll do it. Put a few drinks in you, it's no big deal. You'll do it. How about drinking the toilet water like you saw in the video? Nobody in here would do that sober. Put a few drinks in you, it's no big deal. Regret. The next day you wake up, oh my God, what did I do? Who did I do it with? Why did I do it? And who knows? And one of the things that I see, a lot of the reports that come across my desk, I've got 19 school resource officers that send all the reports to me. And even in the middle schools, sexual assault, rape, okay, mob assault, people going to the hospital, robbery, burglary, other drug use, shootings. I mean, all these things stem out of alcohol use, even down into the middle school level. So, regret, but just stop and think before you do it. Is there something else I could be doing? Or could I maybe not drink quite so much? Or could I maybe not drink at all, walk around with a soda in your hand or something like that? It can be done. And one of the guys in the video says, why do we drink like that? Well, because we can. And you can also jump off a bridge. Does that mean it's a good idea? Okay, you could also do something to help a friend. You could also go to a movie. You could also learn how to play hockey. You could also learn how to play the violin. There's a whole bunch of other things that you could do. So for me, personal responsibility, taking care of yourself, making sure that you're not in a situation where you can't take care of yourself, taking care of those around you, okay, basic human compassion, have the courage to do something to help somebody, all right, and not putting yourself in a position where more bad things are more likely to happen to you.
If you're at a party and you've already decided I'm not going to drink, just to have a water bottle in your hand or a soda or, a cup of Sprite, just something in your hand. So, people are like, oh, she got something, she's good, Or make the focus something else. If it's a Super Bowl, like that's a big drinking time, make the focus about the game. Like, oh no, I can't drink, I'm just way too into this game right now. Or, make the focus, have a deck of cards and just be like, hey, anybody want to play cards? There's so many other things that you could do to take the focus off of drinking. And also, like Marianne said, there's so many things to do at Mason. I can only speak for Mason because I go there. But we have a cinema in the JC, which is free movies, and they're newer movies, free to students, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just you and a friend, go see a movie. There's so many other things to do than to spend your weekends drinking. Or we're so close to DC. DC is beautiful at night. Just, ride the metro and go see DC at night. There are so many other options.
Parents, if you have students who are considering joining a Greek organization, you need to know that it does increase their risk of heavy drinking because we do see over and over, no matter what, whether it's a college alcohol survey, the CORE survey, American College Health Association survey, the highest amounts of heavy drinking and frequency that goes on college campuses are in fraternities, sororities, and athletic teams. So it is a risk factor.
If someone knows how to properly perform CPR and is next to a student who's unresponsive, not breathing, call 911, of course, but should they also perform CPR, or should they just wait for the EMT to arrive?
So. There we go. So it's kind of a couple-part question. So yes, if somebody's not breathing, and they're not breathing, and we changed the lay rescuer CPR. So lay rescuer now CPR is, if they're not breathing, you do the whole thing. Chest compressions and breathing. I remember when we used to try to separate it all out and found, even doctors and nurses aren't always good at finding pulses when they're really weak. So the point is, yes, if somebody's not breathing, they're not moving, you start CPR. Call 911 because you need the paramedics to get there. They need to go to an emergency department. But you start CPR. Because in point of fact, especially with alcohol poisoning, while it affects all the organ systems, you're going to become unconscious. You may block your airway. And so the first thing you can do is actually get oxygen back into the body. That fixes most of the other problems that are going to happen in the rest of the body. Once 4 minutes has gone by, now you have some brain death that occurs with that. So it's a very, very short window, and that's kind of what the physician was alluding to. Yeah, you need to call early to get somebody there, but I'll say, because we've had this discussion a lot, it's going to be really hard for somebody, even a doctor, to figure out if somebody who's unconscious and unresponsive is asleep or about to die. Now, I have the advantage, paramedics have the advantage, we got a lot of equipment we can hook you up to that give us a lot of information about what's going on inside the body. But if it's just you sitting there looking at somebody and they're hard to wake up, or you can't wake them up, you have no idea which one it is. So you call. You have to call. I don't think you have a choice then. You have to call. Now, we can deal with the repercussions, what happens if that person's intoxicated or what's going on. I don't care. I mean, as a physician, I don't care at that point, because if they're dead, that's even worse. Okay? You got to make the call. And yes, CPR would be what you would need to start if they're not breathing.
Thank you very much. It's a great panel. I just wanted to, this is mostly to the students, that it seems to be the focus of the film is that you should, if a friend sees somebody that's in trouble, you should call. And that's sort of the culture today. Their friends are watching out for everybody's friends. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot depend on your friend. Your friend, who's your normal buddy, he or she may be drinking too. So they're not going to have the judgment to, let's say, for instance, if you need help, to call. So the point is, you have to watch out for yourself. And if you're drinking, you're not watching after yourself, because you don't have any kind of capacity to make the decisions. So the most important thing is to take care of yourself and don't count on somebody else having to call for you.
What do I do if somebody's offering me a drink? How do I get out of that? And there are a number of ways, like they've already discussed. Also, eventually, like I said, I was in a fraternity and everybody knew I didn't really drink, and that was me. And they were fine with that. And I didn't judge them for drinking, but I didn't drink myself. And I think if you sort of strike that balance where, hey, this is who I am, I'm comfortable this way, let's hang out. And if it's not a confrontational thing, if it's not a judgmental thing, then they were fine with it. But the other thing that I want to touch on is from a kind of personal safety standpoint. I can't help it, it's what I do. But I'm sure you've heard, stories of, and I know the UVA story that came out in, what was it, Rolling Stone? There were a whole bunch of issues with that story. Take that specific story out of the mix. There are plenty of real stories very similar to that occur at college campuses and unfortunately high school parties. More than one middle school party so far this year. So, one of the first things I said after the movie was, don't put yourself in that situation. But you know what, you're in college, your hallmates want to go to the party, so you know what, I'm going to go. I'm going to see what it's like. I'm going to check it out. There's a great book that's called The Gift of Fear, and it's really more about sort of self-defense, personal awareness type things than it is binge drinking. But I think there's some very good points that kind of tie in particular for female students. So you go to the fraternity party because it's your first week in college, there's a party, you want to go check it out and see what it's like. The girls always say, we're going to go together, and we're going to stay together, and we're going to look out for each other, and you never do. You never do. Okay, why? Because this guy comes over, starts talking to one of you, and you go off and talk to him, and then some other girl you knew from 6th grade comes over and starts talking to you, and you go off with her, and now the group of 6 girls is down to 4, and then you get pared down, and eventually you're standing there by yourself like, what the heck is going on? And it's you and 20 dudes that you've never met before in the middle of the dance floor. And one of the things that The Gift of Fear talks about is your natural intuition. If you kind of come to and you realize this isn't right, leave. Okay? Don't sit there and say to yourself, oh, my friend will come back. She's not going to ditch me here like this. Okay? Don't sit there and say, oh, it'll be okay, I'll be all right. If your 6th sense goes off and you think something isn't right, leave, go find something else to do. Protect yourself, okay? And that's one of the main reasons that if you're drinking yourself, you end up in a lot more danger because that sixth sense never goes off. You lose it when you get intoxicated. So from my perspective, in terms of protecting yourselves, trust in that sense of fear. And if it kicks in, it's time to go.
Jill, what do you want to say to the college girls out there, the high school girls out there? I know you have a lot of advice.
Well, I'm here in front of the camera today because our daughter Morgan was murdered here in this beautiful college town. So I want you to know that there is danger and there are predators even in beautiful surroundings. So in response, don't tremble in fear. What I want you to do is look out for one another. Use the buddy system, know your surroundings, have your cell phone on you and have it charged. It's important to be responsible for yourself. There's personal responsibility and there's also collective responsibility. If you see friends of yours in a risky situation, please intervene. If people had intervened with Morgan and Hannah, they might be with us again for this Christmas holidays. We want you to be with your parents. So look out for one another. God bless, too.
Okay. So I noticed during the presentation that you were rubbing his back and hugging him at certain times,
Yes.
which was very touching to me. But I also realized there must be a story behind that. So I wanted to ask you, one, what are your names? And then I was wondering if you would share what you were feeling tonight and what was going on.
I'm John Nesbitt, and this is my dad.
Jim Nesbitt.
And how old are you?
I'm 18.
Okay, going to college soon.
Yes.
Okay. So
So,
what was going on?
we had an incident a long time ago when I was young. My sister, she suffered with drug and alcohol abuse, and it was while my parents were away up in New York, and we live here in Virginia. And so EMS had to be called, police officers had to come, they had to take her away on a stretcher.
She was very intoxicated.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and it hit us hard, really hard, and it's one thing to hear about stories and, say, oh, yeah, I'm never going to do this, but to be at such a young age and to live that experience, it just strengthens, or I guess it just shows that, you have one chance and you make one wrong decision and that can destroy your whole future.
We saw a lot of pain tonight, and we relived some of the pain that our family experienced throughout that episode and in the days and months and years which followed her treatment and which continue to this day, unfortunately. It's had a profound impact on our family. The alcohol and drug abuse has had a dramatic impact on her life and her health even today. And
How old is she today?
she's 26.
Wow.
And both of us saw the pain and suffering in the movie, and with the gentleman who lost his son who spoke, it brought back some of those same feelings. And we both lived through it, and we've gotten closer together, and
We have.
we love each other a lot, and we have a bond because of that. And we help each other out, and we help the others in the family out, and we
stay strong.
We stay strong, and we just hope others can deal with this. Others who have to deal with this can deal with it well and come out as good as we are.
And
so
hopefully they don't have to live to see that point where their son, their daughter, their sister, their brother has to be hospitalized, has to, I haven't seen, when it happened, I never saw my sister for maybe 2 years, maybe a bit more, because it was that
She missed
serious.
your life.
Yeah.
You missed hers?
I missed hers, and we've come from a long way. Now, I see her every day. I think we've gotten stronger. We've talked about it, we've cried over it, but we moved on. And I think not having her there and having my dad there to be that strong person that I could just vent to, not only did it bring us closer together, but it brought closure on it. And then talking to her brought everything to peace.
We probably gave you more than you bargained for when you asked us this question.
No, thank you
And
so much
if
for
we
sharing
did,
with us.
we
And
apologize.
No, I definitely hope people can, relate if they've gone through that. And thank you for your courage to stand up here and tell us and share. So, and I hope it helps other
You're
people
welcome.
make the right
Thank
decision.
you.
Because it does. It takes one night
Yep.
to mess everything up.
Yep.
And it takes one bad decision. Look at Hannah Graham with UVA.
Yes.
She's gone.
Yes, tragic.
I have a couple of questions. The presentation is so compelling. I wonder if this movie can be mandatory watching in colleges throughout the country during orientation week, and certainly mandatory for the fraternities. But the other question I have, are there any comparative studies in Europe where the drinking age is lower in many countries? Because I do think it's a cultural problem in part, the degree to which some of that binge drinking goes on. And I respect the brain function idea of 25, but there may be some different cultures where the drinking age is even younger, but the same behavior doesn't go on because the culture is different.
Shows in those countries where they have a lower drinking age, they have worse problems, significantly worse rates of all the problems associated with heavy drinking. We've got some charts, I don't have them with me, but Denmark, for instance, as I recall, for 16-year-olds had something like a 68% or 72% rate of heavy binge drinking, leading to students being passed out and other problems and so on and so forth. I mean, it was just incredible numbers. We're sitting here complaining about 30%, 25 and 30%. They're dealing with 65 to 80%. The only country in all the countries in Europe that showed that was significantly less was Turkey, but they have other problems, but they don't drink. So that's one of the issues there. One country that's not on the charts that I wish I saw more, because I've spent a bunch of time there working, was Israel, where I don't know what the drinking age is, but I know that young people tend to imbibe, and they don't have the problems. So there's no fraternity houses, and socially getting drunk is not an acceptable form of behavior. And I just don't know why. I'm not sure I understand that culturally, but I don't know that it's related to the drinking age. But I do know that all of our studies here, when we went from 18 to 21, first of all, after Prohibition, most of the states were still 21. And it wasn't only until the 1980s that they talked about changing the drinking age. And when they raised the drinking age to 21, there were several states that then tried to lower the drinking age. And in those states, every one of those states showed an increase in their death on the highway due to drinking, raised by about 15%. So there's a direct correlation, and that's why, because of those changes, they went to the 21 universal, federal government. And by the way, there is no federal government law that says 21. It's just that they tied highway funding to the states, saying if you don't adopt 21, we're going to lose highway funding. But it's an interesting how that all happened. It's not that long ago, but we've forgotten it. It's almost ancient history now.
Next, there was a question that was asked, if 18-year-olds have the ability to join our military and offer their lives to protect their country, who's to say when they can and cannot drink and how much they drink?
Yeah, having spent 28 years in the military, I'll tell you it's the military themselves that do not agree to lowering the drinking age. It's the position of all four services to enforce the 18-year-old or the 21-year-old drinking age. If you think about the reason why 21 is 21, it has nothing to do with carrying a gun. It has nothing to do with defending your country, and so on and so forth. It has to do with the maturity of the brain with regard to the decisions that one makes. And, you know, the military loves to have 18-year-olds who's you know, I'd love to have a whole company full of guys run up a hill, and I'll follow them up there, you know, after the battle is over. 21-year-olds might not be quite as exuberant and enthusiastic about running up that hill in the face of enemy fire. So we're talking about apples and oranges when you talk about if you can carry a gun, why can't you drink? And it's the military that, number one, does not support lowering the drinking age from 21. So I make that point. And there's a lot better ways to reward the troops that are coming home than to allow them to drink. And in Virginia, we have a case of a Marine who got off the boat and got drunk and subsequently died, drank himself to death. And he was 19 years old, and it's really a terrible, terrible shame that what had happened. It happened here in Virginia, and it was one of the things that raised the issue, because the legislature was talking about making an exception, and it was quickly shot down. It was shot down basically by the military when the senior officers got up and asked not to lower the drinking age for the military.
Another part of my question was, do colleges make it mandatory, or can we make it mandatory for colleges to show a video like this, and certainly to fraternities where it seems to be more rampant? And why can't we make a policy? You're sort of preaching to the choir. We elected to come here after being communicated, so we're sort of in the fold already.
Yeah, so what I would say is that you are constituents of whatever college your child will be going to, and your voice carries a lot of weight. So if you have that suggestion or want to see that happen, make that suggestion, because programs like mine really have to do battle to get space at orientation to talk about this or to show something like this. And so when it comes as a suggestion from a student group or a parent, that's something that really will be looked at. Now I do know that fraternities and sororities, their national chapter, one of the trainings that they routinely do as mandatory practice is about hazing. But they don't always do training around alcohol specifically, or about sexual assault or anything else. But hazing they often cover in a mandatory way. But yeah, if you want this to happen, we would love to see something like this happen, but your voice will matter a lot to the university.
For your information, also at UVA, apparently during the freshman year, at maybe orientation, they do show the Gordie film. So it's at least one college in seeing.
Thank you for this excellent panel. I was just wondering, what is the role of a resident assistant? What do the RAs do, and what are their, what powers do they have? And do they regularly check for alcohol that's sneaked into the dorm rooms?
Okay, so the role of a resident advisor is just to kind of make your transition into college a little bit easier, and just to be there as a resource if needed. So we do have health and safety inspections, which is done by the Office of Housing and Residence Life, and that's where we come into your space. They don't really give you a time. They just kind of come into your space and make sure there's no violations. That could be anything from, having alcohol present to extension cords, which are not allowed. So we do kind of do those regularly. And also the RAs are on patrol every night at different times, so you never really know when they're coming. So if you are intoxicated or anything like that, then you will be written up, which is, again, you're subject to being kicked off campus or other sanctions that Mary Ann mentioned.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that the RAs live on the floor, so they also hear a lot and see a lot of what's going on up and down that floor outside of the routine rounds that they do. So our RAs on campus are really in tune to what's going on that floor, and we get a lot of referrals from RAs.
I had a quick question. So I know it's about alcohol, but what about a substitute? How do you guys feel about marijuana or any other substitute drugs?
Oh, sorry, I'm hogging the microphone.
All right, so we can go down a long list of other substances. Marijuana obviously is in the news because some physicians are choosing to use it as a medication. Heroin was a medication. I used cocaine when I was at Hopkins. It was a medication. We use it for nasal surgery. We don't use it for that anymore. Marijuana is much in the news. It's currently being branded as a medication, so that makes it okay to use illegally. I'll just say that. That's the easiest way I can say it. There are states that have legalized it. Those states are having second decisions about the legalization. We can talk a lot about what's happening in Colorado, some of the effects that have happened in Colorado with the legalization. The problem is they've legalized a drug, we can call it a medication drug, that impairs you. Now, from a medical standpoint, if it treats seizures, then we should do what the Virginia legislature did, is say, it's not THC we're going to use for seizures, it's cannabinoids, a specific type of cannabinoid that's non-intoxicating. That we're going to use to treat seizures. If it's for your nausea, vomiting, cancer pain, whatever it is, let's not make you stupid. Let's just take care of your pain. So there are 3 cannabinoids on the market in the world, only one's available in the United States, 2 others are available in Europe, that don't intoxicate you. That's what we need. We're having 2 different discussions here, though. There are people who want the intoxicating thing. So no, marijuana is not a substitute. Now, we can discuss whether marijuana causes more social ills than alcohol. Maybe it doesn't. But every drug is a gateway to other drugs. And what do I mean by that? If alcohol doesn't do it to you, it's not enough anymore. You move to marijuana, or you move to something else. Almost everybody who is addicted to painkillers and heroin has used marijuana. Almost everybody who is addicted to heroin and painkillers has used marijuana. That's not true for alcohol. Alcoholics, not all of them have used marijuana. So it says something about that as a drug itself. And we can discuss a lot about it, but there's something very different about marijuana than some of the other substances. Part of it we think is most people who use it in adolescence, the time in our life when we have the most receptors for those cannabinoids is adolescence. So it has the greatest effect at the time most people are using it, and that's probably why it causes such problems down the road with people with addiction at this point. And we can get into the discussion about marijuana too, so any of the adults in the room who'd used marijuana when they were in college or in high school, it's different now, and I liken it to codeine and OxyContin. Nobody hears about CVS being robbed for codeine. They're robbing it for OxyContin. They're both opiates. You can get intoxicated with either one. You just got to drink a lot of one of them to get intoxicated, whereas the other one, it takes a single pill. That's what happened to marijuana. So in Colorado, the medical form of marijuana is 10 to 30 times more potent than the street marijuana was 15 years before. So there are toddlers being admitted to intensive care units after a single dose of medical marijuana. That never happened before. So the potency is much greater. Well, what causes addiction? Potency. The more potent it is, the more likely your body is to like it, the more likely you are to get addicted to it, because it feels good. That's the whole point we use things, right? If you ask anybody why you use marijuana, it makes you feel good. Why do people get drunk? It feels good. Okay? There's a lot of caveats to that feeling good. Bad things can happen. It makes you stupid and all those sorts of things. But that's the point. That's why we use it. So my point would be, it doesn't matter which substance we talk about. All of them are to make people intoxicated. That's what people are looking for. And thereby come all of the bad things with it.
To what the alcohol policies are on campus and what the range of sanctions are. So students charged under the Student Code of Conduct often face disciplinary probation, fines. They are in jeopardy of being kicked out of housing, so they may not have anywhere to live. Even if it's the middle of the semester, they'll have to find alternative place to live. They would not be eligible to come back to housing the following year. Many students, depending upon what was involved in the incident, get referred to an office like mine, where they have to go through a program that is called Basics, Brief Alcohol Screening for College Students. It's a minimum of 2 appointments. So it's a whole variety of stuff that students would be required to do as part of the student conduct process, again, including disciplinary probation or being kicked out of housing. So sometimes students aren't aware of all the different penalties and sanctions that they could be facing for alcohol. And the medical amnesty that was mentioned earlier, a lot of college campuses have that. We were sort of slow to adopt one at Mason, but most alcohol medical amnesty policies that colleges adopt, you only get that once. So we also try to make students know that, yeah, we do want you to call, we want students to be safe, it is about saving lives, but this is not something that you should rely on every Saturday night because you're going to get to use it once, and then after that, those sanctions that we talked about, you'll get on the second call and the third call. So yeah, lots of sanctions in college outside of being arrested by the police.
A lot of things that go on in college that you as parents are going to find somewhat questionable or objectionable. In the Attorney General's Task Force on Drinking by College Students, which was formed right after my son's death. My son, by the way, was one of 5 college students that was killed in a single weekend in alcohol-related incidents in Virginia, and that caused the task force to be formed.
What's the best part of college? Spring break! Right, so what's your major?
I'm nursing at the University of Akron. I graduate in May.
Nice. And what did you say teens should do?
Stop smoking.
Why?
Because that is one of the leading causes of mortality in the United States later in life.
What about alcohol?
Alcohol is another big factor. I would
Do
say
you think the age should be 18 or 21?
I would say 21.
Why?
And I'm going to go scientific with this.
Go ahead.
The scientific reason is your mind, your frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until you're 25 years old.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I know it's pretty cold out here.
Yeah, a little bit chilly.
Thanks for talking to me.
Of course.
So real quick, I just want to hear about college students and alcohol and all the parties. Can you give us some feedback?
Yeah, of course. So parties in college. A lot of people think college is just partying and studying and that's it. And what happens at parties is alcohol, which it's not all about alcohol. You could have so much fun on a Friday night at a party with all your friends without alcohol. Take for instance, I don't drink and I love soda and candy. So I get hyped up on soda and candy right before a party while some of my friends, of course, are taking shots. But by the end of the night, who is the one actually passed out? Not me. I'm remembering everything. I love it. I wake up, I'm fine, ready to party the next day. Other people are like, I need a day to recover. I need a little sleep and everything. I'm ready to go on a run in the morning, have some fun again that night. But the sad thing is, at parties, around 1, when they start going down, it's when you see people start passing out, and all my friends are either throwing up, sitting on a couch, or going home with guys. Unfortunately, I have to be that person to step in and be like, hey, I know you don't want to do this, and in the morning you'll regret it. And a lot of them thank me every day. They love it that I'm there for them and everything, but I have to be that sober friend to look out for them. It's not always fun, but it's always the right thing to do. I know it.
So how come you don't drink?
It's just not fun. I mean, I have nothing against it. I don't judge people that do it. I know some people say it's a lot of fun, but the way people look at the end of the night when they're trashed, they literally look trashed.
Yeah.
So I don't think alcohol is that cute, and it's not something I want to put in my body this young.
You're an athlete, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I run every morning. I love working out. I live in the gym. I work at the gym.
Okay. Well, great. So any advice for future high school students? Like, should they tell people they don't drink and hold their own, or should they just walk around and have a sugar high and have a Gatorade bottle in their hand? And
I think it's not anyone's business if you drink or not, and I don't think you should be judged on that. And I will actually bring one of my friends to the parties, and they're gonna make me drink this and like that. I'm like, no, just hold a drink and act like you are drinking. Don't act wild and fun, but you can control yourself because you are actually sober. So it's perfect. And you can walk around with a Gatorade bottle, Solo cup or something, or water bottle, and just say, oh, I got enough, thanks, and just wobble off.
wobble off.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for talking to us. Hello again. Okay, so we are done with the Haze video. We are done hearing from the panelists, and we are done hearing from college students. The consensus is you don't have to drink during college. You can get sugared out, you can have a blast, you can go to under 21 clubs, you can remember it in the morning, and you can be the one with all the really cool Snapchats, and your friends will thank you for it in the morning. So be like Marissa and go for runs the next day, have a great time. And the best part of college is not spring break. The best part of college is that knowledge. Have a great time in college. Don't be a statistic.